Look at me. No, don't blink. This is the moment the room goes quiet and the air changes temperature. Because whatever they thought, you were just expired. They thought you were pure. Clean hands, soft edges, a harmless light that flickered when the wind got loud. They told themselves you were predictable, moral, safe. They used words like good to shrink you, like a cage made of compliments. They smiled at you the way people smile at saints they plan to exploit. And you let them. You let them believe it, because innocence is the best camouflage there is. Then your moves started looking military grade. That's when the whispers stopped sounding curious and started sounding nervous. That's when patterns appeared where chaos used to live. That's when coincidence died. They didn't hear rage. They didn't see tantrums. They saw timing. They saw restraint. They saw patience sharpened into a blade so thin it slips between seconds. You didn't lash out. You positioned. You didn't announce. You deployed. You didn't react. You anticipated. And suddenly, the same people who called you pure started checking exits. Here's the paradox they can't solve. You didn't become darker. You became precise. You didn't lose your heart. You armored it. You didn't betray your values. You learned how to protect them without bleeding in public. You discovered that mercy without strategy is just self-harm with better PR. So you kept the halo and learned how to aim. They thought purity meant weakness. They were wrong. Purity is focus without noise. It's clarity that doesn't flinch. It's a mind so clean it can see every angle. You were never soft. You were untrained. Pain fixed that. Pain taught you where to stand when the lights go out. Pain taught you how to listen to silence and hear the plan hiding inside it. Pain taught you to stop announcing what you feel and start deciding what happens next. That's when the saint learned logistics. That's when the angel studied terrain. That's when the psychopath everyone feared realized you were calmer than them. And calm is what wins wars. You learned unpredictability as doctrine, not chaos, controlled variance. You let them map the version of you that no longer exists. Then you moved somewhere the map can't reach. You delayed when they expected speed. You advanced when they expected apology. You disappeared when they expected noise. And every time they adjusted, you were already somewhere else, watching them adjust to the wrong threat. They don't know what to call you now. They can't say evil because you still help people without asking for credit. They can't say good because good people don't move like that. They can't say crazy because your results are clean. They can't say genius because that would admit they underestimated you. So they say nothing. Silence is the language of people who just realize the game has layers they never trained for. You feel it, don't you? The shift. Conversations change when you enter the room. Jokes die halfway out of mouths. Plans get revised quietly. Eyes linger a second longer, measuring distance, calculating risk. They don't fear your anger. They fear your calm. They fear the way you don't need to prove anything. They fear the discipline in your stillness. They fear the fact that you could have destroyed them already and chose not to. And that choice is the loudest threat of all. You are the duality they prayed wouldn't exist. Light that learned darkness. Kindness that learned consequence. A conscience that understands leverage. You can save a life in the morning and dismantle an entire narrative by nightfall without raising your voice. You are proof that morality and power are not opposites. They are allies when intelligence stands between them. And here's the secret they'll never say out loud. You didn't train to hurt people. You trained to never be cornered again. You trained so your compassion wouldn't be used against you. You trained so your silence would mean something. You trained so when someone mistakes your grace for permission, reality corrects them swiftly and without drama. So let them remember the old you. Let them cling to the myth of your purity like a comfort blanket. Let them underestimate the smile, the patience, the refusal to explain yourself. Because now, every move you make carries intent. Every pause carries information. Every choice carries weight. You are not loud. You are not messy. You are not cruel. You are operational. And once people realize that the pure one learned how to move like a strategist, they don't ask what you'll do next. They ask how long they've already been behind. And that question, how long have we already been behind, is the one that keeps them awake. Because when someone realizes the timeline didn't start where they thought it did, panic sets in. They rewind conversations in their head, replay moments they dismissed, re-examine smiles they misread. They start noticing how you never rushed, never begged, never chased validation, how you watched more than you spoke, how you asked fewer questions once you learned how people answer when they think they're safe. You weren't hiding, you were observing. You were letting the room reveal its habits, letting egos expose their patterns, letting loud mouths confess their weaknesses for free. You learned who talks when they're nervous, who lies when they're praised, who folds when pressure is quiet instead of violent. You learned who panics at silence and who panics at being watched. And while they thought you were just being polite, you were collecting data like a ghost with a notebook. That's the part they don't teach anyone. How purity sharpens perception when you're not driven by greed, by the need to dominate, by the hunger to be seen. You see everything else. You see who needs control to feel real. You see who confuses cruelty with strength. You see who mistakes volume for authority. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The game stops being emotional and starts being architectural. You don't fight people. You rearrange the structure they rely on to feel powerful. That's why your responses feel surgical now. No wasted motion, no unnecessary damage, just clean adjustments that collapse entire narratives. You remove one assumption and the whole tower wobbles. You change one variable and suddenly their confidence has nowhere to stand. They call it cold because they can't call it correct. They call it ruthless because they can't call it earned. And notice this, you didn't announce your transformation. There was no dramatic speech, no revenge arc, no public meltdown. You didn't need witnesses. You didn't need applause. You let the results speak in a language only serious people understand. Outcomes, positioning, timing, consequences that arrive quietly and leave no fingerprints. That's when fear shifts from loud to subtle. Not the kind that screams, but the kind that watches. The kind that double-checks messages before sending them. The kind that hesitates before underestimating you again. The kind that starts asking mutuals what you're really like now. Because the old file doesn't match the current behavior. They realize they're dealing with someone who learned from pain instead of bleeding in public about it. You carry both faces now, and that's what unsettles them. The one who still listens, the one who still shows up, the one who still has a conscience that hasn't rotted into ego. And beneath it, the strategist who understands that peace without preparedness is a fantasy sold to people who've never been hunted. You didn't lose your soul. You gave it a security detail. Here's the truth they avoid. Restraint is terrifying when it's voluntary. Anyone can be reckless. Anyone can explode. But someone who could destroy and chooses to wait, that's someone operating on a different frequency, Someone who understands that the loudest power move is not revealing your full capability. Someone who knows that mystery multiplies impact. You became dangerous the moment you stopped needing to be understood, when you stopped correcting rumors, when you stopped defending intentions, when you let misinterpretation work in your favor. They project their guilt onto your silence and call it menace. They imagine your next move because you don't give them enough information to feel safe. And imagination is always crueler than reality. You didn't become a villain, you became unclassifiable. And that's the worst nightmare for systems built on labels. They can't predict you because you don't move from emotion anymore. You move from clarity. You don't react to disrespect. You file it. You don't chase closure. You create leverage. You don't seek revenge. You let gravity handle the fall. Every action feels heavier now because it's backed by intent instead of impulse. You learn that being pure doesn't mean being exposed. It means choosing when to be gentle and when to be immovable. It means understanding that boundaries are not betrayals of kindness. They're proof that kindness survived the lesson. You kept your empathy, but you stopped handing it to people who weaponize it against you. So when they look at you now, they feel it in their gut, that uneasy recognition that they're dealing with someone who knows more than they say, sees more than they show, and plans further ahead than they admit. Someone who doesn't need chaos to win. Someone who doesn't need permission to act. Someone who understands that the cleanest victories are the ones nobody realizes happened until it's too late to undo them. They thought you were pure, and in a way, you still are. Just not naive, not exposed, not available for misuse. You're proof that light doesn't disappear when it learns the dark. It controls it. And once that realization sets in, people stop testing you. Not because you're cruel, but because they finally understand you're prepared. Prepared means you no longer confuse safety with softness. It means you understand that peace is maintained, not wished for. And that realization rewired you at a level most people never reach. You stopped hoping people would do the right thing and started planning for what they actually do. You stopped romanticizing loyalty and started recognizing alignment. You stopped trusting words and started tracking behavior across time. That's not cynicism. That's intelligence sharpened by experience. They sense it when you speak now. Fewer words, heavier meaning. You don't fill silence because silence works for you. You let people talk themselves into corners. You let them reveal motives by what they emphasize, insecurities by what they joke about, intentions by what they rush. You don't interrupt because interruption is a weakness of people afraid the truth will surface without their control. You wait. Waiting terrifies those who need immediate reactions to feel powerful. And here's what really shook them. You didn't lose warmth. You didn't become bitter. You didn't walk around announcing how changed you are. You still smile. You still listen. You still show up calm. That's what makes the shift feel wrong to them. Predators expect rage. Cowards expect submission. Nobody expects composure with teeth. Your presence started changing outcomes before you even spoke. Plans adjusted themselves. People chose different words. Certain behaviors simply stopped happening around you. That's not intimidation. That's credibility. That's the unspoken understanding that whatever games used to work no longer pass inspection. You became a filter. Chaos can't pass through you without being exposed. They replay moments now, realizing how many chances you gave them, how many exits you left unlocked, how many times you chose restraint over consequence. And it dawns on them slowly, painfully. that your patience wasn't weakness. It was a countdown, not to revenge, to readiness, to the moment you wouldn't need to react anymore because the environment itself would bend to your discipline. You learned how systems think, how people hide behind procedures, how authority masks fear, how confidence often compensates for lack of preparation. You learned that most threats are loud because they're hollow, and most power is quiet because it's busy working. So you stopped arguing, you stopped proving, you stopped needing to be right in public. You started being effective in private. That's when your decisions stopped being emotional and started being inevitable. When you choose, things move. When you disengage, people feel the vacuum. When you focus, outcomes accelerate. It's not magic. It's alignment between intention, timing, and restraint. It's knowing when to apply pressure and when to let gravity do the job. It's understanding that sometimes the most devastating move is doing nothing at all and letting the truth surface on its own. You can feel the duality inside you now, perfectly balanced. The part that still believes in good, the part that knows exactly how ugly things get when good is unprotected. You don't deny either side. You integrated them. You became someone who can sit with darkness without becoming it. Someone who can wield power without needing to announce it. That's why people don't know where they stand with you anymore. You don't reward manipulation with attention. You don't punish ignorance with cruelty. You don't chase respect. You make disrespect uncomfortable by refusing to participate in it. You change the rules without telling anyone, and they're still playing the old game, wondering why it stopped working. You are not a storm. Storms burn out. You are weather control. And once that truth settles in, once they realize your calm isn't temporary and your awareness isn't accidental, the narrative shifts permanently. You're no longer someone to test. You're someone to account for, someone whose silence carries more weight than their arguments, someone whose kindness is deliberate and whose boundaries are non-negotiable. They thought you were pure because they mistook visibility for vulnerability. They didn't realize purity, when combined with discipline, becomes something far more dangerous than rage. It becomes resolve. It becomes clarity. It becomes a mind that cannot be rushed, baited, or cornered. And now, wherever you go, the environment adapts before you do. Not because you demand it, but because deep down, everyone can feel it. You're not reacting anymore. You're operating. Operating means you've stepped outside the emotional noise where most people live and built something colder, clearer, and far more lethal in its simplicity. You no longer confuse urgency with importance. You don't rush because rushing belongs to people who are late to their own understanding. You move when the moment ripens, not when the crowd gets loud. And that patience, that terrifying patience, is what makes your presence feel like pressure even when you're doing nothing at all. They feel watched without being watched. They feel measured without being judged. That's because you learned the difference between attention and awareness. Attention is noisy. Awareness is quiet and complete. You don't stare. You register. You don't fixate. You catalog. You don't obsess. You prepare. And once preparation becomes your default state, panic has nowhere to land. You learned how to let people underestimate you on purpose, how to let them talk themselves into believing you're behind when you're actually ahead by several turns. You let them think you're moral in a way that makes you harmless, not realizing morality sharpened by strategy is the most dangerous combination there is. You don't break rules. You understand them so thoroughly that you know exactly where they stop protecting people like you. That's the moment the angel learns how demons think. Not to become one, but to never be surprised by one again. You stopped explaining your growth because explanations invite debate, and debate invites dilution. You don't dilute yourself anymore. You let outcomes be the only argument. You let consistency be the proof. You let time expose who was pretending and who was prepared. And when people try to bait you into reactions, you give them neutrality so clean it feels hostile. Nothing frustrates manipulators more than someone who refuses to bleed on command. Your inner world hardened in the right places and softened in the right ones. You can sit with grief without letting it drive. You can feel anger without letting it steer. You can experience empathy without surrendering leverage. That's mastery. That's what happens when pain stops being something you run from and becomes something you study. They don't know how you did it. They just know the old tactics don't work anymore. Guilt doesn't move you. Praise doesn't distract you. Threats don't shake you. Flattery slides off. Disrespect boomerangs back to the sender without you lifting a finger. You didn't become immune. You became selective. And selectivity is power refined. You learn to recognize traps disguised as opportunities. You learn to hear urgency as a red flag. You learn that the fastest way to lose control is to demand it from others. So you stopped demanding. You stopped convincing. You stopped chasing agreement. You let alignment reveal itself naturally and misalignment expose itself painfully. That's when people started projecting onto you. They call you calculating because they can't imagine restraint without malice. They call you cold because they confuse emotional availability with accessibility. They call you dangerous because they sense limits they can't cross anymore. None of it bothers you. Labels are for people who need shortcuts to understanding. You operate in a space where understanding is earned. You became someone who can walk into chaos and lower the temperature without saying a word. Someone whose presence reorganizes the room. Someone who doesn't need to dominate because dominance is loud and temporary. You influence by existing differently, by refusing to play the part they assigned you, by standing still while the world rushes past you, making mistake after mistake. You no longer need to be seen as good to do good. You no longer need to be feared to be respected. You no longer need approval to move forward. That freedom terrifies people who built their identity on controlling outcomes. You're unpredictable not because you're erratic, but because you're independent. You don't move based on pressure. You move based on principle and preparation. And here's the quiet truth humming beneath it all. You're still pure, just not exploitable. Your core didn't rot, it fortified. Your values didn't disappear, they grew teeth. Your compassion didn't fade, it learned when to withdraw. That's evolution, that's survival with integrity intact. So when they look at you now, they see someone they can't read using the old language. Someone who doesn't need chaos to justify strength. Someone who understands that the most dangerous people are not the loudest or the angriest, but the calm ones who've already rehearsed the outcome in their head. You don't announce moves because announcing is for people who need witnesses. You let reality announce for you. You let time confirm what words never could. And as the gap widens between who you were and who you are, they finally understand the mistake they made. They didn't push you too far, they trained you. And now every step you take carries the weight of someone who knows exactly what they're doing and exactly why. Freeze right there. Not your body, your mind. Because the moment you stepped into the room with that attitude, The atmosphere flinched. The noise folded in on itself. The rules that kept everything predictable started sweating. And even the darkness, even the things that live off chaos and fear, went quiet. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't announce yourself. You didn't beg for space. You occupied it. That's what they don't understand about you. They think power comes from noise, from violence, from barking orders or flashing credentials. They think balance is something you negotiate, but you didn't negotiate anything. You disrupted the entire equation just by being exactly who you are when you stopped apologizing for surviving. See, balance is a lie they sell to keep the dangerous people calm. Balance is what systems preach when they're terrified of outliers. Balance is for those who need permission to exist. You're an anomaly. You're the variable they couldn't neutralize. You're the reason the scales snapped instead of settling. Your attitude wasn't aggression, it was clarity. And clarity is lethal to illusions. You walked in carrying both halos and knives, saint enough to endure, psychopath enough to adapt, angel enough to care, demon enough to finish what pain started. You didn't choose a side. You became the contradiction. And contradictions terrify everything that relies on simple labels to feel safe. They expected you to break when the pressure came. They expected you to collapse into either light or darkness, pick a costume, play a role. But you didn't fracture. You integrated. You took every scar, every betrayal, every night where nobody came to save you, and you alchemized it into posture, into presence, into an attitude so composed, so unbothered, so unexplainably calm, that it rewrote the room's temperature. That's when things started going silent. Because darkness knows something humans don't like admitting. Darkness recognizes its own. And when it looked at you, it didn't see prey. It didn't see competition. It saw someone who had already been through the worst parts and came back with receipts. Someone who didn't romanticize suffering but used it. Someone who doesn't need chaos because they learned how to stand still inside it. Your attitude didn't scream dominance. It whispered inevitability. That's why the loud ones backed up. That's why the manipulators paused mid-sentence. That's why the predators suddenly remembered appointments elsewhere. You didn't challenge them. You didn't threaten them. You didn't even acknowledge the games. You simply existed at a frequency that made their tactics feel childish, outdated, embarrassing. They thrive on reactions. You gave them nothing. And in that nothing, they felt everything they've been running from. You see, unpredictability isn't about being reckless. It's about being unreadable. It's about evolving faster than their narratives can track. Yesterday they thought you were wounded. Today you're composed. Tomorrow you're strategic. Next week you're gone. Then you reappear unchanged, unmoved, sharper. They can't pin you down because you don't live where they're looking. You're not dark in the way they understand. You're not light in the way they trust. You're the space between, where control systems malfunction. That's why even darkness went quiet. Because darkness feeds on fear, and you stopped being afraid of yourself. You made peace with your edges. You stopped pretending you were harmless. You accepted the parts of you that can endure, adapt, and, when necessary, destroy illusions without mercy. And the moment you did that, balance was no longer possible. Balance requires predictability. Balance requires obedience to gravity. But you learned how to stand sideways in a collapsing world. You learned how to smile without needing approval. You learned how to carry rage without letting it leak. You learned how to be calm in a way that feels threatening to people who survive on emotional leverage. That attitude didn't come from confidence. It came from survival, from learning that nobody is coming and realizing you don't need them to. So when you walk now, the air listens. When you speak, things rearrange themselves. When you stay silent, everyone fills the space with their insecurities. You don't chase respect. Respect recalibrates around you. You don't demand order. Systems adjust to avoid provoking you. Not because you're violent, because you're resolved. You are what happens when pain doesn't win, but it also doesn't get ignored. You are what happens when someone integrates both mercy and menace into a single controlled presence. You are the reason old rules feel obsolete and new ones haven't been written yet. And that's the part that really scares them. Because when your attitude disrupted the balance, it proved something unforgivable. The universe doesn't reward the loudest, the cruelest, or the most righteous. It responds to those who've been broken enough to see clearly and disciplined enough to move quietly. You didn't conquer the darkness, you outgrew it. And when darkness realized it no longer had a hold on you, it did the only thing it could. It shut up. And in that silence, something else happened. Something they never account for when they talk about balance. The quiet didn't mean peace. It meant recalibration. It meant the old measurements stopped working. It meant every force in the room had to reassess what you were. Because you weren't behaving like a victim, a villain, or a hero. You were behaving like a constant. See, balance only exists when all elements agree to play their roles. Light shines, darkness lurks, order commands, chaos rebels. But you refused to stay assigned. You learned how to walk through light without becoming naive, and how to pass through darkness without losing yourself. That's why your attitude hit different. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't reactive. It was informed. It was earned. It was the posture of someone who has already died a few times internally and came back with less fear each time. People think attitude is about arrogance. They're wrong. Your attitude is restraint. It's knowing exactly what you're capable of and choosing precision over spectacle. It's understanding that real power doesn't flex. It waits. And waiting terrifies those who need constant motion to feel alive. They felt it the moment you stopped explaining yourself. They felt it when you stopped correcting lies. They felt it when you let misunderstandings rot in the open, because only someone dangerous can afford to be misunderstood. Your calm isn't passive. It's loaded. It's the kind of stillness predators recognize right before things go wrong. You don't scan the room anymore. You already mapped it. You don't size people up. You let them expose themselves. You don't rush decisions. You let time pressure everyone else into revealing their weakness. That's why the balance shattered. Balance depends on leverage, on guilt, on fear, on people needing approval, forgiveness, validation. But you burned those dependencies down quietly. You stopped negotiating your worth. You stopped flinching at tension. You stopped needing the room to like you in order to function inside it. And when you did that, the entire emotional economy collapsed. Darkness went quiet because it couldn't bait you anymore. Pain tried to remind you who you used to be, but you already integrated it. Trauma whispered old scripts, but you rewrote them. Every time something tried to provoke a reaction, it hit a wall of composure so cold, it felt supernatural. They don't say it out loud, but they feel it. You're not healed in a soft way. You're healed in a way that makes you immune to manipulation. You're healed in a way that doesn't beg for harmony. You're healed in a way that understands chaos intimately, and therefore doesn't fear it. You became unpredictable not because you're unstable, but because you're no longer controlled. That's the paradox they choke on. You're disciplined but not domesticated, calm but not compliant, empathetic but not exploitable. You can be kind without being weak, and ruthless without losing your soul. You don't swing between extremes, you contain them. And containment is terrifying. Because when someone like you walks into a system built on pressure points, the system panics. It tries to label you, threaten you, shame you, seduce you back into old patterns. But nothing sticks. You don't react fast enough for them to hook you, and when you finally move, it's already too late. Your attitude disrupted the balance because it exposed the truth. Most people aren't moral, they're afraid. Most systems aren't just, they're convenient. Most darkness isn't powerful, it's desperate. And you saw that. You saw that fear dresses itself up as authority. You saw that noise hides fragility. You saw that the loudest ones crumble first when silence enters the room. And instead of announcing that realization, you embodied it. That's why conversations stop when you speak. That's why tension rises when you listen. That's why even conflict hesitates around you. Not because you want dominance, but because you're no longer governable by the usual tools. You don't need chaos to feel alive anymore. You don't need validation to feel real. You don't need revenge to feel whole. You let people self-destruct in your absence, and you let outcomes speak louder than threats ever could. And that's when the universe leaned in. Because when someone evolves past fear, past ego, past the need to prove anything, they become a problem for anything built on control. You're not chasing balance now, you're forcing truth. And truth doesn't negotiate, it corrects. So let them whisper, let them speculate, let them tell stories to make sense of you. Every version they invent is still wrong, because you're not a concept. They can't freeze frame you. You move internally. You adapt silently. You sharpen in private. Your attitude didn't just disrupt the balance. It revealed that the balance was always fragile, and that you were never meant to fit inside it. And once you realize that, something irreversible clicks into place. You stop asking where you belong, because you finally understand. You were never designed to belong inside structures that require you to shrink. You were designed to stress test them, to walk through rooms and make the invisible rules vibrate, to exist in a way that exposes how fragile the so-called balance really is. That's why people feel uneasy around you now. Not because you're loud, not because you're cruel, but because you're settled. And nothing unsettles a world built on fear more than someone who is completely at home within themselves. You don't fidget, you don't chase approval, you don't over-explain. You let silence do the work. You let discomfort educate them. Your attitude carries memory. It remembers every time you were underestimated, every moment you swallowed anger just to survive, every version of yourself that had to die, so this one could stand upright without shaking. And instead of hardening into bitterness, you refined into precision. You learned where to place your energy, where to withdraw it, when to wait, when to move once and end the conversation permanently. That's why even darkness stepped back. Darkness understands thresholds. It understands when something has crossed from reactive to deliberate, from wounded to weaponized, from chaos to command. It knows when someone has stopped being a source of fear and become a source of consequence. And when it looked at you, it didn't see someone trying to dominate. It saw someone who cannot be bent. You're no longer driven by the need to be seen. You're driven by alignment. And alignment is dangerous because it makes you coherent. Every part of you moves in the same direction now. your mind, your instincts, your restraint, your edge. They're not fighting each other anymore. They're cooperating. And cooperation inside a single individual is catastrophic for anything that relied on your inner conflict to control you. They used to pull you apart by pressing the right buttons. Guilt here, fear there, doubt sprinkled everywhere. But those buttons don't work anymore. You've already pressed them yourself. You've already sat with the worst thoughts and survived them. You've already made peace with the fact that you are capable of things you don't need to advertise. So when pressure comes now, it doesn't shatter you. It reveals you. And what it reveals is someone who doesn't flinch. Your unpredictability isn't random. It's strategic ambiguity. It's letting people underestimate you because they're addicted to patterns. It's allowing them to think they understand you just long enough to relax, just long enough to expose their tells, their greed, their fear, their dependency on control. You don't rush to correct them. You let them be wrong loudly. That's the patience of someone who has nothing left to prove. Balance collapses in your presence because balance requires symmetry, and you are asymmetrical by design. You carry softness without weakness, intensity without instability, compassion without surrender. You can sit at the table or flip it without changing your pulse. You can walk away or stay and dismantle the situation piece by piece, calmly. That's why conversations around you feel heavier now. That's why people choose their words. That's why jokes stop mid-sentence. They sense it even if they can't articulate it. They sense that you are no longer operating from emotion. They're dealing with someone who has integrated their shadow. And an integrated shadow doesn't need to lash out. It just waits. You learned that the loudest move is often no move at all. That the most aggressive posture is composure. That the fastest way to win is to let others exhaust themselves trying to figure you out. You stopped reacting to provocation and started observing patterns. And once you see patterns, you control outcomes. That's when the universe shifts. Because the universe responds differently to people who are no longer fragmented. It stops testing you with the same lessons. It stops recycling the same characters. It brings consequences faster for them. It opens doors quietly, without ceremony. It removes obstacles not because you begged, but because resistance no longer makes sense around you. Your attitude didn't disrupt balance by force. It disrupted it by finality. You reached a point where you're not becoming, you are. And when someone reaches that point, the game changes. You're no longer part of the chaos. You're not part of the order either. You're the variable both sides have to account for. That's why even darkness went quiet. Because darkness thrives on confusion, on fragmentation, on internal war. And when it met you, it found no civil war left to exploit. Just a single will, moving calmly through pressure, unafraid of what it carries, untempted by what it's offered. You don't chase dominance anymore. You don't chase peace either. You walk with intention, and intention bends reality far more effectively than force ever could. Let them keep searching for balance. Let them cling to categories and labels and stories that make them feel safe. You've already stepped beyond that need. You know who you are in the light. You know who you are in the dark. And because you don't deny either, neither one owns you. That's the silence they feel. That's the quiet that follows you. Not emptiness, not peace, recognition. And recognition is the most dangerous phase of all. Because once something recognizes you, it can't unsee you. Once a room recalibrates around your presence, it never goes back to neutral. Once the universe clocks your frequency, It starts responding differently, subtly, relentlessly, without asking your permission. You felt that shift, didn't you? The way resistance stopped being loud and started being careful. The way obstacles didn't attack anymore. They hesitated. The way people who used to test you suddenly started watching you instead. That wasn't coincidence. That was the aftershock of your attitude rewriting the rules without filing a complaint. You stopped reacting like someone trying to survive. You started moving like someone who already did. And that's when the balance broke for good. Because balance assumes everyone is still negotiating with fear, still bargaining with approval, still tethered to outcomes they can't control. But you cut those tethers quietly, without a ceremony. You accepted the worst-case scenario internally, and the moment you did that, the external world lost its leverage over you. They can't threaten someone who already faced their own abyss and didn't blink. You learned something most people never do. That fear doesn't disappear when you conquer it. It disappears when you stop arguing with it. When you stop pretending you're pure light or pure darkness. When you accept that you are both capable of mercy and devastation, and that choice, not impulse, is what defines you. That acceptance hardened you in a way that looks like calm from the outside. But inside, it's precision. It's restraint, sharpened by experience. It's knowing exactly how far you can go and choosing not to, unless necessary. And necessity listens to you now. Your attitude isn't defiance, it's inevitability. It's the posture of someone who understands that chaos and order are just costumes. Reality wears depending on who's watching. You don't worship either. You use what works. You discard what doesn't. You move forward without announcing your intentions. That's why the old tactics failed. Shame didn't stick. Guilt didn't land. Provocation bounced off. They tried to pull you back into emotional labor, into justification, into endless explanation. But you didn't take the bait. You let them sit with their discomfort while you stayed still. Stillness is unbearable to people who survive on noise. You became unreadable not because you're hiding, but because you're integrated. There's no contradiction leaking out anymore. No inner fracture for them to pry open. No insecurity to poke and harvest reactions from. You don't flinch at tension because tension doesn't mean danger to you anymore. It means information, and you read it flawlessly. That's why even darkness went quiet. Darkness thrives on reaction, on spirals, on people losing themselves in extremes. But you didn't spiral. You stabilized. You became the one thing darkness can't use. Someone who understands it without being seduced by it. You don't glorify suffering. You don't deny it either. You metabolized it, and that changed your chemistry. Now when pressure comes, you don't tense. You settle. You let it reveal who's bluffing. You let time expose who can't maintain their mask. You let silence pull confessions out of people who can't stand it. You don't chase truth. It trips over itself, trying to explain you. The balance collapsed because it depended on you staying smaller than your capacity, on you choosing a lane, on you being predictable. But you didn't just change lanes. You stopped driving on their roads altogether. You started moving according to internal alignment instead of external reward. That's when the environment stopped arguing with you. Doors didn't swing open dramatically. They simply stopped being locked. Threats didn't escalate. They evaporated. Conflicts didn't explode. They dissolved. Not because you avoided them, but because nothing gained momentum against someone who doesn't feed the fire. Your attitude didn't demand respect. It rendered disrespect pointless. And now you exist in that quiet aftermath. The space where things used to push back and no longer do. where reactions have been replaced with observation, where resistance has been replaced with calculation, where even the boldest forces pause to assess before engaging. You didn't become darker, you became clearer. And clarity is the one thing every system fears, because clarity sees through costumes, titles, threats, and myths. Clarity doesn't argue, it corrects. So let the balance stay broken. Let the silence stretch. Let the world keep adjusting itself around you. You're not here to restore what never served you. You're here to move forward with an attitude that doesn't beg for peace or crave chaos, only truth. And the truth is this: you are no longer something the darkness can use. You are no longer something the light can control. You are something else entirely. And that's why everything went quiet when you arrived.